drives you? What inspires you? Let's ignite your why. Welcome back to Ignite Your Why podcast. I'm your host, Austin T. Gullett, and we're here to have genuine conversations with authentic people to help amplify their voice and figure out what ignites their why. Today's guest was born and raised in Charlotte, North Carolina. He is a music artist, TikTok live creator, and the owner of Wild Things Media Company. He is also the co-host of his own podcast, Friend to Fiancé. So let's give a warm welcome to Jordan Tarzan. Jordan, how are you doing today, man?
Yo, man. Austin, I'm amazing. Thanks for having me, bro.
Of course. I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm excited to learn more about you. So let's just hop straight into this, man. So what is your story?
Let's see. What part, though, specifically?
Whatever you want to share.
Man.
That's the thing.
Well, I mean, again, like you said, I was born and raised in North Carolina, moved to Atlanta. From there, moved to Texas. From there, moved to Florida. So each place has a part in me. So anytime people ask me where I'm from, I let them know I'm from the jungle. For me, where that really came about was being a part of different cultures that was just so strict on like their way of doing things or vibe or whatever. And I used to make a statement like, oh, well, we're from the wild. We don't abide by those laws or those rules. And then it kind of just rolled into, the jungle, and then, created a community of people who kind of like identify with living outside of other people's rules kind of thing. So that's where that originated from, man. Bro, I just feel like when you ask the question, what's my story? I just feel like I just need a little bit of something. I need to know more specifically,
Yeah. So when I ask this question, it's more so just what experiences have you gone through that helped shape you into who you are today? Like, for instance, when I tell people my story, it always starts with, I'm from Covington, Kentucky. I was very fortunate enough to grow up with two parents. And just the way I grew up, I saw my privilege. Just growing up in a very low income area and seeing and being exposed to the things I was exposed to, those experiences shaped me into who I am. And it's why I'm doing what I'm doing today, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your childhood and what was that like? And you said you moved to these different places, and was it all as a child, or was this like in your adulthood?
Just gradually, as I got older, more and more, I moved to these different places. And the cool thing is, Atlanta gave me, obviously North Carolina gave me my foundation, but Atlanta kind of gave me my culture. And I say that because, North Carolina is about 4 hours from Atlanta, and a lot of things that happen in North Carolina, kind of trickles down from Atlanta. So a lot of the pieces of what I experienced in North Carolina, I experienced like the hybrid, the concentrated version when I moved to Atlanta. So it gave me a stronger form of identity than in culture, I should say, than what I had prior to. So the cool thing about living in Atlanta is that that's the only place that I know that so many people work together. Not saying that people don't work together in other places, just that that's the place that I experienced where people, like, I'm saying, like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, everyone is willing to collaborate with each other in some way, shape, form, or fashion. And that's the cool thing, because that's a place where there's so many emerging entrepreneurs and successful entrepreneurs. And I think it's specifically for that reason, because of whatever the culture is there that has everyone just working together. And that's not what the culture was in North Carolina at all.
I feel like those are two different cities. I've never been to Charlotte, but I've been to Atlanta, and Atlanta is very busy. I feel like it's a very high population, and everyone that I know who goes to Atlanta loves it. So it's just, I had a good time when I was there, and it was just, I want to go back eventually. But what was it that initially drew you to go to Atlanta? Was it that like scene of like music and the industry, or was it just like fuck it, I'm just going to Atlanta kind of thing.
Yeah, no, man. I guess a little bit of both. It was like, well, a lot of my family is from there, right?
Hmm.
Or surrounding areas at least. And it's one of those things where it was like I knew that I had to get up out of North Carolina to continue to grow, because I have this thing of where when I can identify a ceiling, no matter where I'm at or what I'm doing, when I can identify a ceiling, I find somewhere else with a higher ceiling, to go with a higher ceiling. And then when I identify that ceiling, I go somewhere else where I can identify the higher ceiling. I'm not really the kind of person that will just keep banging on the ceiling, hoping that it breaks, eventually trying to get it to break. For me, it's just unhealthy for me to move in that way, because what it does for me is generate a level of ego,
Hmm.
and that level of ego for me leads me to different paths than the operating with grace, wisdom, trusting in God, taking it one step at a time. So I just continue to travel. I was actually watching this clip of Stephen Furtick. He actually does pastors at Elevation Church, and one thing he mentioned was how miracles are always on the move. Miracles are always on the move. You'll never see a miracle just sitting still, waiting for you to grab it. It's always on the move. It'll, purpose will kind of like throw its throw a piece, throw a string at you, and then keep going. And it's up to
Hmm.
you to grab it and follow it. And keep going. So for me, when I moved to Atlanta, that's what it was. It was kind of like, all right, it's time to go to a place with a higher ceiling. And being an artist, a hip hop artist, that is definitely a healthy culture to thrive as a hip hop artist. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's what happened when I kind of leaned in and got there. And it was a really, really, really empowering and transformative experience.
It's crazy how you're talking about this because I feel like on the last two episodes I've had this conversation where I'm telling people where if I'm bored, I'm leaving, right?
Facts.
To a point where if I'm not growing, if I'm not getting anything out of this, I'm not just going to stay here and be complacent in life. Because I
Yeah.
think that's just kind of our kind of generation where it's
Yeah.
just we always want to learn, we want to grow, we want to know everything possible. And if I'm not learning anymore, I'm doing myself a disservice. You know what
Yes.
I mean? Because it's just
Hmm.
if I'm not bettering myself, then what am I doing?
Yeah.
And that's
I
how I
agree.
see it. Because
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense. I can because my parents would always be like, "Oh, like I worked this job for 30 years or whatever it is." And a lot of people talk about saying like longevity of like your career, but in reality, I'm not growing. I'm not staying. I
Yeah.
gotta go. There's something else out there that can teach me something that can propel me to where I want to be in life. And if it's not doing it here, sorry, I gotta go.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
I at least try to stay a year. That's my goal though. Is like if I start a job, like I'll stay there at least a year because obviously the first 2 or 3 months you're going to be figuring out your role, understanding what you need to do,
Yeah.
and it's hard to truly say if you're going to like this job or not in the first month or so because it's new to you. Of course, it's going to be difficult. Of course, you're going to have those struggles, but if you continue to see it through for at least a year, I feel like at a year you're going to know if you like this job or not.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. I
So
agree. For
anyone
sure.
out there, at least stay a year. Stay a year. Give yourself time. And I think that's the thing in life is sometimes we're just so quick to make decisions that we don't
Yeah.
take a step back and think like this could be something for me or this can't. But there's always going to be a lesson in everything that we're doing. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah. I know. I agree. I agree. I'm not sticking around anywhere too long anyway. I'm not sticking, because for
Yeah.
me, I listen, I need high energy. I need a lot of stuff. I need to go and do and experience, and because at the end of the day, we got one shot at this thing. And I always tell people that we have one shot at this thing. And um, you know, I'm not a big fan of being stationary. And I mean
Hmm.
stationary meaning when it comes to goals, when it comes to purpose. Big fan of I'm not a big fan of taking your time. I'm a big fan of going through. however much time it takes to accomplish it. But I'm not a big fan of taking your time when trying to accomplish goals, because your time might be way less or way
Mm-hmm.
faster than the time that it actually takes to accomplish the thing, right? So you can be overzealous and try to rush it and still miss the target, or you can be super laid back and feel like what is for you is meant for you, and you'll get what's meant for you. But I don't believe that. I don't believe what's for you you will just get it. I don't believe that at all. Because if that's the case, none of us would have to do much to
Right.
accomplish
Shit's not
everything we
handed to
needed in
you.
life.
Shit is not handed to you. I think that's
Yeah,
the thing is, especially with this generation now. Like I coach soccer, so I see it. Like these kids just want shit just handed to them, and it's like, no, like if you want it, go get it. You got to work for this stuff. Like I didn't get to where I'm at because it was handed to me. I had to put in the work to get there, and I think
yeah,
that's the thing. It's the grind. You got to want it. You have to have that will. But it's just crazy because I think now with like social media and just video games and the computer screens, that's all they're doing. I think
yeah,
that we've lost like human interaction in a sense,
yeah,
and it sucks. I wouldn't say kind of sucks. Like it does suck because it's vital. Those are vital like life skills you need to have to succeed. Being able to connect with people, networking is huge. I tell people all the time, if you're not networking, you aren't living, because I don't know everything. I will admit that. But Johnny over here might know something that I want to know. So I'm going to
yeah.
ask Johnny those questions. So that's the thing is, in today's world, our children are just so into their computer screens or their phone screens or TikTok or whatever it is. And it's like, take a step back, see life for life what it is and not just what's on a screen. Because I tell
I
people
actually
all the
don't even
time.
think it's just the children. I what I
Oh,
really
yeah.
believe, I think is done it to all of us. Because
Mhm.
if you can think of homies right now, friends and family members right now, that because what the screen did was take away our reason to have a why, right?
Mhm.
So you can see family members and friends that you speak to right now that you encourage that
Facts.
won't move, that
Facts.
you know what I'm saying. So it's literally, it's kind of a thing where it's all of us, whereas at one point it was like, many of us, we would complain about not having enough opportunity. Now we have all the opportunity in the world, but we have no motivation
Mhm.
to execute it, because we don't really know what we want to do, because it's so easy to be distracted by what everyone else is doing, that we don't have to take enough time. We don't have the solace that we used to have, the quietness, the stale moments in life where it's just you having to be left with your thoughts to actually process what you want in life, or where you want to go, or what's next, XYZ. Everything is just, and listen, bro,
It is.
I'm a victim myself, like as motivated and as hard as I go, I can still go harder. And a lot of times what the screen does, it takes my energy as well too. It takes my life force as well too, because I'll be on the phone scrolling or just chilling, and it's like it's giving me that dopamine that I need, that that fix that I need, to where it's like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm satisfied. To whereas if I wasn't getting it there, I would have to go out there and get it, and create it, by the
Yeah.
experiences or the actions that I do, which, it's like a quick fix, kind of like making love or watching, you
It,
know,
it's a temporary
an
high.
explicit movie.
That's the
Exactly.
yeah. It's a temporary high, and I think that's the thing is, I kind of miss the old times. Like when I was a kid, like I played outside, I had friends, and now I feel it. Like I sit on my phone all the time because it's what to do. Like
It's there.
it's there. Like
It's
it's
there.
always there. And I think
It's
that's the
there.
thing. It's just I've been trying to be better. I think that's the thing. I've tried to like distance myself from my phone to be more present in what's going on, because I don't know how many times I've been hanging out with like a group of people and you can look around and almost everyone's on their phone, and it's like
Yeah.
you're in presence with people. Let's try to like take a step back and embrace the moment. And I think you said something very interesting is it makes it harder for people to find that why in life. And it makes me want to go into this next segment, which is the big chunk of this entire podcast. It's just, what is it that truly inspires you? But more importantly, what is it that ignites your why?
Honestly, growing up, I've always focused on focusing on who I was rather than what I did. So a
Hmm.
lot of people used to ask me like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And for me, I was always more passionate and focused on who I wanted to be, instead of what I wanted to be. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I always focused on who I wanted to be. And nobody ever asked me, who do you want to be when you got older? That's not a
Mm-hmm.
question that's commonly asked. Is who do you want to be? It's more so, what do you want to be, as far as, oh, what job do you want to operate in? What occupation? But for me, it was always about my character, more than my career. So I was never sure about what my career would lead me
Mm-hmm.
to, but I always was confident that if I got my character right, my character would choose the right things and will open the right doors for me for whatever career I would end up doing. So, um, honestly, being the best individual that I can possibly be is the thing that really, really, really drives. Like, I'm talking about character wise. I'm not talking about someone like not being holier than thou, or not being like this arrogant, like I'm better than you, or this. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
like, genuinely at my core, of the way that I respond, the way that I process, the way that I think, the way that I act, the way that I feel, the way that I digest, the way that I reflect. I really want, my goal is to really see how I'm with food, with nutrition. Like, it may take me different times, health, with these different things of trying to knock off these different things and at different seasons. But I really truly want to be the best individual that I can possibly be. So that's the thing that drives me the most.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what also connects me and drives me with my relationship with God, because I know that I can't be that without God's help, right? Um and for me to even be that, I have to operate in love, and I can't know love if I don't embrace the sacrifice that God made that exemplifies his love, comes by
Mm-hmm.
way of Jesus. So I embrace Jesus' love so that I can learn that character and try to get close as possible to that character and digest and receive as much of that character that I can walk in as possible. And that's what drives me, and to try to be the absolute best person that I can be. So I don't know. I guess that's a long-winded why, but
It's
that's
beautiful
why.
though. It's beautiful though, and I think it is inspiring because when you're sitting there talking, I'm just thinking, I'm like, damn, like he's right, and it's true. No one ever asks you like, who do you want to be? It's always what do you want to be, and I think that's just the way society is because society is very big on stereotypes and labels, and it's just I want to
Yeah,
be a doctor. I want to
yeah.
be this. I remember when I was growing up, my mom was like, "You always said you wanted to be a McDonald's manager," because I loved
Probably because they
McDonald's.
got the
Like,
headsets. They look so cool,
I thought it
bro.
was cool. Like, I was like, "Oh, that looks." I want to be a McDonald's manager, but then over time, I was like, "Want to be a professional athlete," and then it wasn't until I was in college where I truly had to figure that out for me because I feel there was so much pressure to kind of pick a major or do this and all the things that people are like spitting at you. And I tell people all the
Yeah,
time, it's like if I could go back in time and understand that the decisions I'm making are the ones I'm going to be living with, not the ones like my mom's going to live with, not the one that Susie's going to live with or my mentor or whoever. It's just I'm making these decisions and I have to live with them. And I feel people put so much pressure on you and they want you to do things that they want you to do that it's just like, do what you want to do. And it took me forever to realize that. And I didn't even declare my major until I was a junior because they were like, you don't have any more gen eds. You got to pick something.
right. Yeah, no, that's funny. That's funny. So I actually have, so my nieces, so I remember one time, so as a hip hop artist, I remember I was going through just the ranks or whatever, and one time I
Hmm.
was in the studio and I was in the middle of making a song and I just couldn't get the flow right. And a lot of people think that, oh, it's so easy to get behind the mic, but it's so much deeper than rhyming. It's tone of voice, it's how you articulate things. It's more detailed when you really want to sound good. And I remember sitting there, and then I just felt like I just felt this impression, and it was like, if you keep going on the path that you're going on, the only thing that you're going to have to offer your family is money.
Hmm.
And that right there changed the trajectory of everything with me, because what I what I what I what I didn't want, I had nieces, so I reflected on my nieces and I was like, well, I want to be able to show them what a real man looks like. I want them to at least be, they can't say they didn't have one, or they didn't have an
Mhm.
example of a great man. I should say it. I don't like real man, a great man, in their life. I want to make sure I'm an example of that. I want to make sure I'm even an example of that for my sisters, even for
Mhm.
my mom, because the man that she married wasn't the best man, which he's deceased now. But I want to be that example specifically so they can't say that they never had a great example. So that changed the trajectory of my life with everything that I did. I became more conscious of everything that I did because, again, it's that character thing. It's
Mhm.
just so important to me to build my character. I don't want to brush off anything. I don't want to brush off my health. I don't want to brush off the condition of my heart. I don't want to brush off the fact that I get mental fog. I don't want to brush off the fact that I can be easily angered. I don't want to brush off the fact that I can be discouraged, easily discouraged. I don't want to brush off the fact that I might not be the best of friend, or I might not have the most positive thoughts. I don't want to brush off these things. I don't want to brush off anything. I just want to try to live an optimum high performance life as much as possible, starting from my character and from my core. So those girls were a big part. The women in my family altogether was a big part in my why
Mhm.
initially starting out, and then as I became, which I will share that story later, but as I became a young adult and then met my now wife, that gave me a greater why. And the thing is about being a husband is you don't have the same challenges as you had when you were a single man, or even a boyfriend or a bachelor or whatever. It's a different level. It's almost like the highest level of
Mhm.
character that you're called to walk in, because you will be tested at the highest level.
I think it's amazing how self-aware you are. I think that's the biggest thing I'm getting from this is you're very self-aware of your emotions and how you're feeling and how you articulate things. And I think one thing you're saying is like you wanted to be a great man for your nieces and your mom and everyone else. But what you're not realizing is you're being a great role model for other young men,
Yeah.
right? I think that's the most important thing is you're setting an example for others around you and you give off this positive energy and you have a great light about you and it's very warming and like I can feel it through the computer screen, you know what I mean? And
Word,
it's
word.
it's it's beautiful. And I think there needs to be more people that are like that, but I know it doesn't just happen over time. Like you've had to go through your struggles, you had to go through your ups and your downs. That's life. That's how we develop character. So we're not experiencing things, we're not developing things, right?
Yeah,
Our losses teach us so much more than our wins. I tell people that all the time. If you can't lose, you can't win, right?
yeah.
Because that's where the growth is. You grow in those down seasons. Unfortunately, like we have to have them, but
Right.
that's but that's where the biggest growth is when you think
This is
about it.
true.
Like I've learned more about myself in my lowest points than I ever have in my highest points.
Because you're not thinking about it. When you're up, you're up. You're not thinking
Yeah.
about it. And listen, I've learned, bro, that just even based off of what you're saying right now, man, I've learned that we, all the times where I was addicted to winning,
Hmm.
it limited my perspective. It limited my sensitivity to certain things because I just wanted it to be a win, a win, a win, a win. And when it was an L, right, when I had to take a lesson, I kind of rejected the emotion or rejected the moment or despised it, or why is this happening to me, or this not fit for me, losing is not fit for me, or whatever. And what I found is that when you have to win every single time, it creates a character, and it feeds an ego
Hmm.
inside of you that ends up turning into an identity that you might not really want to be aligned with. And it robs you of a lot of nutrients when you don't embrace, we like to say in my investment classes, learning lessons. We don't call them L's, we just call them learning lessons. I took a learning lesson, so I took a loss, so I'm
Hey,
with you on there.
I say my L's are my lessons, right? I
Yeah,
took an L, but I took a lesson, right?
yeah,
It's not necessarily a loss, Like, yeah, it didn't go the way I wanted to, but what I've been trying to reconstruct my thinking is, what could I have done better? What am I
Yeah,
learning from this? Obviously, it didn't go right, but what went wrong? Where can I
yeah,
fix things? But also, what did I do right? Because in every lesson that you have, you always are going to do some things right. It's just, what
yeah,
did you get wrong? And I
yeah,
think that's the biggest thing, is when you can accept the fact that you aren't perfect and you aren't going to get everything right the first time you do it, that's when
yeah,
you truly see growth. And I think that's the thing, is we always just want it, and we want it now, and we don't have the patience to get there. And I think that's the thing, is everything takes time. And I like have a verse on the back of my shoulder, and it's John 13:7. Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you'll understand." And for me, when I hear that and when I remind myself, it's always a reminder to me, just take a step back, breathe, and it'll all work out in the end, because
yeah,
he has a plan. It's going to work out the way it's supposed to, when it's supposed to. It's just, you got to go through what you got to go through to get to that point. And
yeah,
it's just because it might not make sense in the moment. Like you said earlier, you got into that mindset of just like, why is this happening to me? Like, what did I do wrong, or X, Y, and Z? And it might not make sense in that moment. But later on in life, when you look back, you're going to be like, oh shit, I remember this time and it taught me X, Y, and Z. And it's
yep,
just that full circle of life. And I think it's a beautiful thing.
yeah. I dig it, man. I'm with you. I'm
So
with
I,
you.
so I want to ask you about this, because I'm very curious. What was it that truly inspired you to get into the music industry? What brought you to that point where you're like, I want to be a music artist?
Man, I think it was all the like I don't know. I think it was all the reasons why everyone gets into it, man. I think it's so seductive. You know, it just pulls you in. No matter what
Hmm.
kind of music that you're into, it pulls you in. And when I was a kid and listening to music, I was so hyped rapping the lyrics back, you know, like, and I would try to keep up with the lyrics, you know. So it got to the point where I would just keep doing that, right? Like it was like my mission to get the verse down pack, and I would just do it when I was younger. To the point where I just kept doing it. And then around me growing up, it was a lot of artists around. And then one day I was just like, let me turn on the beat and then let me just try it. And I just started trying it. No, I'm gonna tell you what it yeah, yeah. And then I started trying it. And then one day my homie was like, yo, come over, let's record. And I was like, all right, cool. And I did like my first freestyle, which was absolutely terrible. But when I left, I was feeling on top of the world. You know, if there's anybody out there that ever created music and fell in love, they know what it was like after they, it don't matter how trash it was. In the moment, it didn't feel like it was super trash. It just felt like hearing your voice back felt amazing. But I think it was all the reasons why everybody fall in love with music. I think that I was just blessed with the ability to be able to duplicate it.
Hmm.
You know, I don't think that my passion or my love for it is any different or any more significant than what makes what we all feel when it comes to music, right? Because if we could all be musicians, if we could sing, if we can make our favorite genre of music, most of us would, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I was just blessed with the ability to be able to duplicate it, is why I actually did it. But man, I mean, it's freeing. I mean, you get to tell your story. You get to say it in a cool way. You know, you get to create a vibe. You create a soundtrack out of a thought. You know,
Hmm.
it's just this magical thing that's you know, this audible art that is just cool. You can create a moment and you can create a world from one song, and it doesn't
Hmm.
even matter. Like I'll give this example. Majority of R&B songs that are like love songs, in the time that they made it, with if there was a person that they had in mind while making it, most of the time they don't end up with that person. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
we end up singing the song forever. You know, and other times it could be a moment that never really happened in their life, and they're just creating this scenario of this possible scenario or this common scenario that you can think of, and we can be singing it, and it creates this reality for us that may not have ever been a reality for them at all. You
That's
know,
the
so it's
beautiful thing about
yeah,
creative
right. You
minds.
know, you creating these worlds. So
Creativity is just
yeah,
like the inner child coming out, I feel like. And I think
yeah,
when you're in a creative state, it kind of just the world stops for me, in my opinion. Like when I'm creating content, when I'm doing a podcast, my mind is not anywhere else. Like it's just
yeah,
I'm here. I'm in this moment. I'm living here in this moment. And I think that's the beautiful thing about creativity. And I tell people all the time, like when I was younger, that creativity was sports for me. So
yeah,
when I didn't have sports anymore, because like when college, like I stopped playing, I was lost. Like I didn't know who I was. A lot of athletes identify with their sports. That's all they're
yes,
known for. Like growing up, I was known as the fast white kid and the kid who played 4 different sports, and that's how I was identified. Like everyone knew me because of sports. So when I didn't
yes,
have that anymore, it was just like, okay, who am I? And when you are in a creative space, you're able to just like let free and break free from all of those little voices that are all over the place, and I think it's so
yeah,
beautiful. But I think it's interesting because I feel like I've had other music artists on this podcast, and I think everyone's journey is different of why they get into music, and it's interesting. And I think, like you said, you just been blessed with this gift, and some people just have it, and some people don't.
yeah,
But it's beautiful. It truly is. And I listened to a few of your songs before we got on here because I always do my research on people, and they're pretty good.
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie to you. They're good.
yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks. Energy packed.
For sure, for sure. And I kind of want to ask this question because we haven't talked about this yet, and I'm very curious. So your podcast, Friend to Fiancé,
Yeah.
um, tell the people about it. What's the concept? How did it come about, and where can they find it?
So the friend to fiance podcast. I am one of the hosts. So I'm one half of the host, and my wife Jasmine Jane is the other half. And basically, the title is called Friend to Fiance because I actually proposed to her out of a friendship. We were completely friends, like a part of a friend group. We didn't date. We didn't kiss. We only gave each other side hugs. We never like fully embraced each other. And I think primarily the reason for that was us respecting our friendship. I think that we honored it so much
Hmm.
that we wouldn't allow, even though like there would be other people that we would give a hug to, we wouldn't do it with each other because we were such great friends and we didn't want those lines to blur. But it wasn't even necessarily a conversation. It was more so just a true, genuine respect, and it was like a self awareness. It was like, yo, it just didn't want to muddy because it was such a great, great friendship. So our podcast is basically us sharing our story of how we went from friend to fiance, and how it really started was um, in my singleness, I feel like that I was having conversations with God internally, and He was giving me these impressions that I needed to completely focus on Him. And then it just occurred to me one day, and it's like, I don't want to have another girlfriend. The next person that I'm with will be the person that I propose to. And it just started. I just went down this path of like, well, if scripture says wait until after marriage for the intimacy, and the primary difference between a relationship and a friendship is the romantic intimacy, that must mean that you can find your soulmate in a friendship. If God said that you're supposed to wait until after for the
Hmm.
intimacy, and the only difference is the intimacy, right? Then you must can find your soulmate through a friendship. So that's the kind of approach that I took, man. And she was living that out in her own life when we met, and we became friends, and we started serving, and our whole story is on the podcast. But basically we're just sharing our story, and just the purpose of the podcast is to share with others how you can find forever through friendship.
It's a beautiful. I think it's an interesting take, for sure, because I think it's not as common in today's society, if you know
Yeah,
what I mean.
yeah,
But I've I've seen the clips, and you guys, they drop so many nuggets, y'all. Like they talk about some real shit, and it's good. It's good content. So go check it out. I'm sure it's just gonna take off. Um, it's just the beginning for you guys, and I can see it. Like there's so much success that's gonna lie ahead, and you guys are doing something great. So just keep at
Oh,
it.
yeah, man. I really appreciate that, bro. A lot, a lot.
Because I see the clips pop up, and I'm like invested. I'm just like, okay, what are they talking about today?
Yeah.
Because it's like you always have some type of knowledge that is useful, relatable, and it's just like, damn, like this is good. Like,
Or no, man, that's really dope, man. The goal is like, here's the thing. The only reason why we would really refuse to not go the route of friend to fiance is for personal desire, right?
Mhm,
And which is perfectly fine, right? Like, why do we want to be a boyfriend, and why do we want to be a girlfriend? Why do we want to have a claim to someone prior to God giving us that claim to them? And of course, it's desire, and that's perfectly fine. However, the beautiful thing about like defying desire is destiny usually is connected to us defining our desires, right? And I don't mean that in the sense of desires of where we want to go or where we want to be in life. It's desires of what we want to indulge in on the way to where we're going and where we want to be in life, right? So there's something powerful in delayed gratification, and there's character being built in delayed gratification.
mhm,
And it says, scripture says, I can't remember the exact scripture, but it says, don't despise discipline, because let discipline finish its work and it will produce good fruit, right? I paraphrased it, but that's what the scripture says, right? And it's like, hey, like, if you let it finish its work, it'll produce good fruit. And the fruit that I realized that delayed gratification produces is character. So what it does is it reveals my character to me, and it
mhm.
reveals your character to me. If you can't get what you want out of me at the pace that you want it, I get to see your real character. If I can't get what I want when I want it, or don't give myself what I want when I want it, I get to see how I react to that. And that's the real character. Who are you when you get upset? Or who are you when you don't get what you want? How do you treat me when you're not getting what you want? How do I treat other people? How do I treat myself? How do I think when I'm not getting what I want? And that really identifies who I really am.
It's interesting when you think about character. I think back to college. I had my favorite class was leading with emotional intelligence, right? And I
But
think emotional intelligence is so vital and so important, because I don't think people realize that there's more than five emotions.
talk
there's
that
like
talk.
there's like 22, right?
Right.
There are so many emotions that you can feel. And when I was going through that process, we had like this 360 survey we had to do, and I had to send this survey to five friends, five coworkers, five like different kind of people that like I like interact with on like a day-to-day basis, and even
Yeah.
some strangers, just to see how people perceive you. And it was interesting because I never knew how to recognize when my emotions were being hijacked at that moment. But after taking that class, I was able to be like, okay, my emotions are being hijacked right now. I need to take a step back and not react the way I want to react right now,
Yeah.
because those reactions are out of pure emotions, which is
Yeah.
why now to this day, when I coach soccer, I have this rule. It's a 24-hour rule. Like, parents cannot talk to me for 24 hours after a game, because when you're coming to me after a game, say we just lost, and you're upset that your kid didn't get X amount of playing time or X, Y, and Z, you're going to come to me upset. I'm already upset. This conversation is not going to be beneficial for either one of us, because
Yeah.
we might say something that we might not necessarily mean in this moment. So give me 24 hours so I can process what I need to process, and then we can talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is like, I understand when my emotions are here, and when you act out of pure emotion, sometimes you don't get the best results. Where if I take time to let my emotions come down, I can have a nice civil conversation with you and articulate what I need to say to you. Because
Definitely.
I might say something in this moment because my emotions are hella high and they're hijacked right now, but I might not necessarily mean that. Maybe that's how I felt in the moment,
Yeah.
but when I had time to process it, I'm like, damn, I was upset because this happened and it's really not that serious. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's just basically understanding your emotions and understanding how they are and what affects you and how it affects you. And it's a lot. I'm not
Yeah.
perfect at it. I'm not going to say I am, but
Yeah.
it takes time. And I think the
Yeah.
one thing I'm learning through therapy is how to retrain my brain to think a certain way,
Yeah.
right? Because we go through these experiences in life and you don't necessarily understand the impact it has on you until you get older. And there's certain things that I do now to this day because of things that happened in the past. And it's
Yeah.
crazy when you think about it because it's just like,
Yes.
I think this way because this happened to me. And I
Yeah.
will honestly never forget the one sentence my therapist said to me. She always said, she asked me, she was like, whose voice is it? Right? Because sometimes like we think certain ways and it's not even our voice that's telling us to think that way. It's
Yeah.
because someone somewhere down the line impacted you so much that it trains your brain to think this way.
That's
It's
so
crazy
good.
to me. It's crazy
That's
to
so
me.
good. That's facts. That's a fact though.
Because I'm like, I'm always hard on myself, right? I set myself to very high expectations, but those expectations were put on me from other people being an athlete.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it translates into like my life. And I never
Yeah.
realized that when you play sports from 4 all the way up until like 18, 19 years old, that's a lot for someone to to
Yeah.
do. So
No, it's funny. No,
yeah.
no, because one time my mentor, I was talking to him, and this is around the time earlier on in my marriage, and I was like, man, like, you know, I'm just so focused on getting better in my character and elevating things of that nature, and I feel like certain things she's just not as focused on as I am. And he mentioned to me, he was like, well, you know, you got to think about why you're like that. Where did that come from? And he was like, you've probably had to depend on that to elevate much through your life. And I was like, yo, yeah, I've had to do, lean on personal development to
Mhm.
navigate through the waters that I was, brought up in. And so he was like, so that's why you're so serious about it and so anal about it, because you're conditioned that way. So you have to make sure that you take time to actually think, like, are you encouraging her to do XYZ for her, or are you encouraging her to do XYZ for you? And it just had me to reflect on my conditioning, like how you just mentioned,
It's deep.
way earlier on.
It's deep. Those questions people ask you, it's deep, and you're just like, oh shit. Let me take a step back, because
Yeah.
and that's the thing. I think that's when you're with someone is like, how am I making you better? Am I being there for you? Like, am I doing this for the betterment of you, or is it because
Correct.
it's something I want you to do? And I
Yeah.
think it takes that balance, and it's a hard balance to kind of understand. And I tell people all the time is just have patience. Have patience in everything that you do, because when you try to rush things, you're not going to get the best result. That's how I feel.
Yeah. 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 I agree. I'm with you. I'm with you.
so, so I want to go into my favorite segment of this entire podcast. Anyone who knows me knows I am a huge, huge mental health advocate, and any chance that I get to talk about it, I'm gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
So, my question for you, Jordan, is just how have you been taking care of yourself mentally?
First things first. I think it's a great question. And the first thing that is the foundation of my mental health is reporting to something higher than myself, which is God.
Hmm.
Right. So I don't create my own standards for myself initially, because I can always bring the bar low enough to my comfort level. So I always, start with, okay, well, what does God say about these things? Because it's always a higher perspective, right? Scripture says,
Hmm.
my ways are higher than your ways, my thoughts are higher than your thoughts, my thoughts aren't your thoughts, my ways aren't your ways. So I start there, right? And the thing about me grabbing it from there is that lets me know that, okay, my thoughts aren't the last say so. So that helps me right there off rip, because it lets me know that my thoughts aren't the peak of the understanding of this situation or scenario. So that first gives me peace, right?
Hmm.
Just no matter what, right? And it really doesn't matter what you believe initially, when and specifically about what we're talking about. It's just more so about understanding that your thoughts don't have the last say so in a situation, right? So that gives me breathing room from where my thoughts are and the possibilities of what the truth about the situation is, right? It creates a gap. And so from there, man, I just do a lot of process of elimination. So I just found out the other day, like, okay, I need to take a nap in the middle of the day because I run out of energy. Right? So, and I realize that I run out of energy and I get mental fog and I get cranky later on in the later afternoon. So I realized, like, okay, I need to implement that. I realized that I have to eat breakfast, because if I wait until lunch and then I prolong lunch a little bit, I might be too hungry and then I'll get hangry. Then I won't be as productive. Right. And it's these little things, right? I
Yeah.
have to make sure that I exercise, because if I get too used to just operating in the same body each day, I'm going to get cranky, I'm going to get mental fog. It's not going to be the same experience as me pushing my body and sweating some of this stuff out and stretching or whatever. Right. So it's these different things. It's these trial and error, these process of elimination things that I continue to do to keep tweaking, tweaking,
Hmm.
tweaking, tweaking. So I do a lot of tweaking, 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 tweaking. I'm like a professional tweaker. Like I will keep looking for things to tweak to get the right. It's kind of like when Professor X on the Powerpuff Girls was trying to create the Powerpuff Girls, and at first he was trying these different things and then, just trying to get or a chemist just trying to get the right ingredient, trying to get the right equation. And obviously it changes as the days go and as the seasons change. But honestly, that right there helps me out a lot. And then in addition to making sure that I'm in the right environment, because it doesn't matter how good of a seed you are. If a seed isn't in good soil, it's not going to grow healthy. So those two things,
Facts.
making sure, trying to keep those two things aligned.
I think it's crazy because we're constantly evolving, right? And I think that's what you're getting to is every day is a different day. Every day is an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to learn. And I think that's the thing in life is we're constantly evolving. And it's crazy how we have these little things that seem like it's not much, but it does so much for us, like working
Yeah,
out, like, and taking your naps. I know people are so vital that they have to have their naps. I can't
yeah,
take naps. I can take naps, but if I take a nap, I'm gonna be up all night.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But that probably helps you because you're a TikTok live streamer. So
yeah,
taking your naps are probably super vital for you.
yeah.
We didn't really get to talk about TikTok much, but what made you start wanting to live stream on TikTok and reach out to people that way?
I accidentally ran across a live streaming platform before TikTok. I spent some time there, and the people kind of just welcomed me, and it was cool to embrace people and be empowered by them and empowered back. And I love like if anyone knows about TikTok battles, you get to go against another streamer, and your support gets to, battle against their support, and whoever has the most support wins. But and those things are like it's like a sport for me. It's exhilarating. It's fun. I look for ways to grow and get better at it. And with TikTok though, I had previously stopped live streaming, and then one day I was on a cruise, and it was just like, let me just go live on TikTok. And one day I just decided to go live. And then it happened. It was like a moment. It was just like it just happened. It was like a connection between
Hmm.
me and the community that came through. And I was just stuck. I was stuck. So I just began to grow more into that community. And the thing I love about live streaming for anyone out there, the thing that I love about live streaming, specifically on platforms like TikTok, but anywhere, but specifically platforms like TikTok, is the direct to the community. It's not this middle thing in between you and the community. It is direct access to a community or to your community. Eventually, it'll be your community, but it's a direct access. So, no matter what you want to talk about, what you want to engage in, what you want to laugh about, what business that you have that you would like to share, what products, what services, what ideas, what theologies, what perspectives, whatever it is, a instantaneous audience Now, do you have to cultivate it? Yeah, just like anything. You don't just, it doesn't just come and then it's just there and it's just like, oh, it's just there. But
Mm-hmm.
it will grow if you grow it, just as anything. It will
Yeah.
work if you work it. And the beautiful thing about it is that your community is closest to instantaneous as it's going to get with live streaming. It makes it that much more um, touchable. It makes
Yeah.
you more touchable. They're more touchable. It's a great experience. I love it, and I'm a firm believer. I actually said this to my homie the other day. I'm not sure, no matter what I do in life, that I may decrease in how many hours I live stream, but I'm not sure that I'll ever stop live streaming.
That's interesting. I think the thing about, like you said, it takes time. And I think people don't realize the consistency you had to have to grow a following on TikTok. Because I was going live for a little bit for a while. And like you start to have those like regular people who come in and you can just talk to them and things of that nature. But for me, it was just, I stopped because I've just been so busy. Like my life
Yeah,
is just being an athletic director. Like I literally, there was one week not too long ago where I had a basketball game Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday. And I'm just like,
yeah,
I'm getting home at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. I'm ready for bed.
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
and
Because yeah,
it's,
I'm with you.
it's definitely, it takes a lot of patience. I did notice that, like, but when you're consistent with it, you get those people come in. And I think that's the thing, is people just don't have the patience. I think I've harped on patience so much this podcast episode. Is just have patience, y'all, because it's not just gonna, like we said before multiple times on this episode, it doesn't happen overnight. And I think that's the
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
People
and
just
patience.
expect it to.
Yeah, and patience isn't necessarily about waiting as much as it is about how you're waiting.
Hmm.
It's not really about just sitting and waiting, right? Because you're supposed to work while you wait, but it's more so about how you're waiting that categorizes as patience. Are you waiting in a positive manner? Are you
Hmm.
waiting with positive expectations? Are you waiting while positively preparing, with positive preparation? It's more so about how you're waiting than just waiting. Because a lot of times when people hear patience, people hear wait,
Yep.
you know, but what it really means is keep preparing. Wait
Yeah.
just means keep preparing,
Right.
because
And give
when
yourself
it's there.
grace. Yeah. And give yourself grace. I think that's the
Yeah,
thing, is you have to give yourself the ability to know where you're going. I think that's the thing, is sometimes when we're waiting and having patience, we lose sight on what we're trying to get to,
yeah,
right? Because we just get so like, I wouldn't say complacent, but we get so tired of waiting that we just give up. I think that's the
yeah,
thing, is people, if they're not getting it, they're gonna throw in the towel and be like, "Oh, I'm done." But it's just
yeah,
push through, persevere, see it through, and it doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen in hours. It doesn't happen. It could take months. I think that's the thing, is just being able to build and grow while you're having that patience.
yeah,
So it's so important, and it's taught me so many lessons in life, just being patient, not only with
yeah,
myself, but being patient with other people.
yeah,
Being patient with other people, because
yeah,
Susie over here might be yelling at me, and I might be getting pissed off. But if I
yeah,
give myself patience and understand where she's coming from, like, oh, Susie got a point.
yeah. Austin, you be going through it with those kids' parents, yo. Susie's
Hey,
little Johnny's mom, and she keep getting on your head top.
I'm telling you,
Put
I think
Johnny
that
in the game, Austin.
that's the thing, though, is I think being a coach and having parents yell at you and things of that nature, like, I have to give myself a lot of patience. I understand that I'm not the best coach. I know that. I'm learning as I'm coaching. Like, I've only
Yeah,
been a head coach for 2 years. I'm not perfect. I've
yeah,
made mistakes. I've learned from those mistakes. But I think the thing is like I told you before, I'm hard on myself. And I have people who think I'm a terrible coach. I have people who think I'm a great coach. I have people who think I should be fired from my coaching job. And I have people who think I should stay. But the thing is I used to let that stuff eat me alive, that I was just like, am I good enough for this? Am I doing this right?
yeah,
And then I kind of lost the sight, like after the season, like I took a lot of time to think. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this in the first
Yeah.
place? And it brought me back to the reason why I'm coaching. I want to be able to make an impact on these boys' lives and tell them that like anything's possible, because where I'm from, there's so many stereotypes put on our students just because of where they're from.
Yeah.
And I tell them, like, I was in your shoes. Like, I played soccer here. I went to school here. I went to college. I did this. I did that. And it's possible. But you have
Yeah.
to be given the resources to get to that point. And that's what I want to do. I want to help guide them to a path to success. I want them
Yeah.
to realize that there's more to life than just soccer, because everyone wants to play college sports. But the reality of you playing college sports is very, very slim. And I'm not trying to
Yeah.
say that as like to be mean, but that's just the
No.
reality of life.
Yeah.
And I told the kid I mentor, because I mentored a kid from since he was in 5th grade and he's now a freshman in college. And I told him before, I was like, dude, like, you rely on basketball so much, and all it takes is one injury and then you're done. What's your
Yeah.
backup plan? And I think that's the thing, is having that backup plan, because there's more to life than sports. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that when I was 18. But now that I'm 27, I realize that there's more to life than identifying with this sport and living in this sport. So
Yeah. And
it,
honestly, I don't even like the term backup plan. I never register with that term
yeah,
because like you said, you're not trying to be discouraging, but the term comes off discouraging, and it's
yeah,
easy to not accept the advice when it does, So it's like, but even though obviously it is true to have a backup plan, but I would even just say is like, scripture says, invest in many things, so it's not even necessarily because you never know which one will succeed, right? Whether it's this
correct.
one or that one, and
Hmm.
scripture literally says it. But it's even more so like, just do more things. Just do more things. Just do more things. It's not even about which, if this is
Hmm.
first or this is second. Just do more things, because more experience will give you a more defined direction of where you want to go anyway. So, okay, cool. We got this going. Okay, let's name one other thing that you would like to go after as well. Okay, cool. Let's start working on that in addition to this. You know, and then when you get down that path, I've gone down so many paths, bro, that when I got there, I realized, oh, okay, I now have the understanding of this is not what I want and this is why I don't want it. Now I will pivot, you know,
Correct. Yeah, yeah.
and and then it's like that. I honestly, if there's one thing that I think that many people do themselves a disservice, like just many of us in this world, we do ourselves a disservice of, is we don't try enough things.
Yeah, we put ourselves in a box. And I
Yes,
think that's the thing, is we live in that box, and having the versatility will give you more opportunities. And I think that's
just
the
try
important thing.
stuff.
Yeah. What's the worst thing that happens? You're not good
More
at
direction, more direction.
it.
You know what I mean? Like you guess less when you try more.
Hey, you're speaking nuggets. So, but I just wanted to say thank you, man. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to hop on this podcast and share a piece of your story.
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like rejuvenated, especially after the week I had. It
yeah,
feels good to sit down and actually smile and
yeah,
genuinely mean it. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you for hopping on. But if
yeah.
anyone wants to continue a conversation with you about anything that we might have talked about today, what would be the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, you can reach out to me multiple ways. So you can definitely follow the Friend and Fiance podcast. So on Instagram, it is at Friend to Fiance, the number two, Friend to Fiance. You'll see the logo is green. Follow us on YouTube, Friend to Fiance, the number two, or TO. You'll find us on YouTube, and you'll find us on Instagram, TikTok, Friend to Fiance, and also as well at the Jordan Tarzan. And that is my profile on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well. So, music wise, the Jordan Tarzan, and podcast wise, and deeper conversations and relationship topics at Friend to Fiance podcast.
Oh, well, thank you, man. I do appreciate it. I'm going to make sure all of Jordan's information is in the description below. If you all happen to reach out to him, please just make sure you know on how you found him. It will be greatly appreciated. make sure
Yeah.
you and
Let me
also,
know you came from
yeah,
Ignyte Your Why.
hopefully people reach out to you, but if they don't,
Y-
oh well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I believe they will, man. And hey, look, I want to say this one more thing before we go, man. Austin,
Mhm,
bro. And I mean this from the inside first, then out, bro. Just outwork them, bro. Just outwork yourself. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
you think you got enough joy now? No, work for more joy. You know,
Yeah.
like you think you defeated enough of your demons or this or that or enough of your things. Just outwork. This is one thing I learned with grief, with everything, bro. If you all you have to do is progress, then you
Mhm,
aren't no longer the person that you was when the thing happened to you. If you grow from this week to next week, you aren't the person that you was when it happened to you last week. You're a stronger person and a different person than the person you was when it happened to you. You know, so just keep going, keep progressing, understand that it's not the end. You as a coach, bro, just learn more. Look up ways,
mhm.
look up more information about becoming a coach. You know what I mean? Show them. Don't it doesn't matter about what this person or that person says, right? Because the people that's cheering you on, bro, they don't know what it takes to be good at your position. So they don't really know what they're cheering you on. They don't know what kind of mental turmoil that they're cheering you like, yeah, just keep going. They don't know. They don't know
Yeah.
what kind of pressures, right? And then the people that's booing, they ain't never did what you did. You know, so you
Correct.
can't get listen to the crowd either way, whether they're cheering or whether they're booing. You know, but if this is something that you really want to do, the best thing that you can show those kids how to do is to work very hard, give yourself grace through the process, but win. And it might take a longer time to figure it out, but to learn the
Mhm.
steps to winning. And the process is more important than the product, right? Because the process is what creates you into the person that can handle the responsibility of the product, right? So that you can continue to carry it, man. So, bro, the best is yet to come, man. I appreciate being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it, man. And it's something I'm learning. It takes a lot of self reflection, but I agree. There's more to be done, so I'm excited for like what is to come in the future. But again, thank you for hopping on.
Thank
And
you for having me, bro.
everyone, do not forget to follow us on social media. It's at Ignite Your Why. That's INGYTE, not with an I. We're on every single platform out there: YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, you name it, we are there. Again, thank you all for tuning in. And always remember, find your purpose, ignite your why, and I'll holler at you guys later.
Peace.
Peace.